experiencing Elvis, you've come up with an explanation that perhaps
Well, it's
could
the
help.
closest explanation that I could devise, and I wrote this in my memoir when I finally wrote a memoir.
How deeply do you love someone that you would give up everything to save theirs? The woman who stood by Elvis Presley when no one else could is being told her story. She didn't say anything for 40 years, even though she saw him at his best and held him at his worst. But now that she's 75, she's finally saying the truth. And trust me, once you hear it, you'll never see Elvis the same way again. The night that changed everything. When Linda Thompson walked into that Memphis theater in 1972, she didn't expect anything more than a late-night show. She had no idea how her life would change. When the doors were shut, the theater was dark and quiet. It was one of Elvis Presley's favorite places to rent out after hours. She was only there that night because a friend of theirs had invited her. The king of rock and roll wasn't known to her. In a way that isn't always clear from the news, the mood changed right away when Elvis walked in. He looked very far away. Heavy. Nobody loved him as much as they used to. He looked tired from all the attention. From across the room, they looked at each other. There was a quiet change that not even Elvis's fame could explain. They had more than just a spark. It felt good to be known and understood. They seemed to know each other. It looked like they knew each other already because of their link. The friendship that wasn't talked about grew quickly. Elvis had asked Linda to come to Graceland by the end of the night. She agreed, but she had no idea that the job she was taking would change her life. Graceland looked like a dream from the outside. There were gold records all over the walls. In every room, you could hear music and laughter. The staff was always moving, like the parts of a big machine that were supposed to rotate around one person. Being let into that world would have seemed like a dream come true to many. But Linda's dream became less clear very quickly. It began as happiness but quickly turned into something larger, more personal, and needy. On stage, Elvis looked different to everyone. It was hard to trust him, and he got very upset when he was by himself. Many people fell in love with him because of how charming he was, but it could also hide the fact that he was lonely. He didn't know it, but Linda started to fill a need in his life that no one else could. He cared a lot about her, not just loved her. He felt better and closer to her when he put his weight on her. Friendship wasn't the only thing that brought them together. It was built at night, when there was no music playing. After the guests left, there were only the two of them in the house. At first, things were really nice. They did things like paint rooms together, listen to church music, and laugh about their own jokes late into the night. Elvis made her feel like she was important and fit in. In return, she gave him her time, love, and care. Their days began to go differently, though, little by little. She never lost all of her glitz, but Linda began to notice things that other people didn't. Elvis had issues with sleeping, being in pain, and getting past mental blocks that he couldn't always explain. Fame gave him a lot, but it also took a lot away. Linda was still young and getting to know herself at that point. She began to carry some of his pain on her back. She wasn't just his partner anymore. She was there for him, helped him, and listened to him. Small changes like this one didn't get a lot of attention. The way she stood up while he walked around. She put her hand on his shoulder on long, quiet nights. Without even realizing it, she began putting his needs ahead of her own. From the outside, people still saw wealth and beauty. Living in Graceland, on the other hand, meant having a heavy load that most people never saw. That's not what she asked for. But she did it because she cared. She wanted her to be with him. She wished she could help him stay together. But she wasn't sure yet how much of herself she would have to give up. And in the next part, life behind those gates will test how much a woman can handle before she starts to lose herself. Life behind the gates of Graceland. The outside of Graceland looked like a dream, but the inside felt more like the truth. She didn't just move into a house. She moved into a life that was fast, hard, and never stopped. Being with Elvis felt great at first, and the way he could turn even a quiet moment into something memorable. The laughs he gave late at night, the songs he sang just for fun. But those times started to change slowly and without notice. She was no longer just his girlfriend. He found his balance in her, always with him. There was a different Elvis in every room of that house. At one point, he was full of life and designed rooms like the jungle room to be fun and playful. He was tired the next day and couldn't sleep or rest while lying quietly. She stayed up late with him when no one else did. She learned how he did things when the mood gets bad, when it hurt to be quiet. Someone who could just sit next to him while he tried to keep it together. She was the person he turned to when things got crazy, and he didn't know what to ask. People in other places still saw the story. The jumpsuits, the flash, and the screaming fans. Linda saw the man who couldn't sleep at night, though. How did he need help just to get peace at home? She saw how prescription meds began to fill up the empty spots. Not for fun or to get away, but just to get things done. To do nothing but stand. Just to feel like things are okay. People think it was crazy or out of control, but it wasn't. It came on slowly and was very sad. She was there the whole time. She gave more of herself every day. Her time, her power, and her attention. Her own hopes and dreams of becoming an actress, traveling, and even starting a family slowly became less important. It wasn't that she didn't care about them, but Elvis needed her more. Being there for someone you love when they're having a hard time is easy to think is the only thing that counts. She took over, making sure he ate. The person who called the doctor. The person who told him to take a break. The person who held him when he was too scared or sad to move. It was a love story, but it was also about something more serious. Something more sloppy. Something that cost more than everyone thought. She never stopped seeing how smart he was, even through it all. His kindness, his charm, his skill never went away. His heart was still very big. But the pressure was always there and getting tighter. The fame, the demands, and the need to perform for everyone all the time. She saw both happiness and pain going hand in hand. She worked hard, but she couldn't stop the wave that was slowly building behind him. Sharing the spotlight wasn't part of being with Elvis. It was about trying to hold him up when no one was looking and staying out of sight. She wasn't just helping him deal with his fame, she was also the quiet wall that stopped him from falling apart. Still, the longer she carried that weight, the more cracks it showed in her own image. She wasn't upset. She didn't want anything else. She kept coming back every day because she believed in the man who was behind the story. But love, even the greatest kind, isn't always enough to keep two people together when one of them is slowly falling apart. She couldn't help but think of the question that no one dared to ask. How much can someone give before they lose themselves completely? Next is the breaking point Linda didn't see coming. When love becomes too much to bear, and leaving seems like the only way to stay alive. The breaking point. At some point, not even love can shield you from the truth. For Linda, that point came slowly, in quiet times when the cracks began to show. There were changes going on around Elvis that she couldn't ignore. He was still the man she cared about. It wasn't just getting worse. His health was sinking. The man who used to light up every room was dying behind closed doors. After that fade, there were options. Some tough ones. She had given up everything for years to keep him going. As she worked to keep him together, she began to fall apart herself. She wanted something easy. Not smaller, just the same size. A place to relax, a family, and a quiet life. But that's not what Graceland was. It's not possible. That's not with all the noise, stress, people coming and going, and the steady shadow of fame. And most of all, not with the betrayals. Elvis was able to love deeply and still move away. There were more women. Rumors turned into facts. It became harder to trust. Linda still thought he cared about her, but those decisions hurt a lot. She wasn't mad. She was just tired. The kind of tired you get when you keep pain inside for too long. By 1976, it was clear what to do. Not because she lost love, but because staying would have meant giving up too much of herself. She left, though. Not a big deal. There was no scene. There was only silence, tears, and a quiet goodbye. It felt like magic when she lived in that house, but now she was leaving it for the unknown. There was no reason for her to do it. She had to. After a few months, the phone rang. It was Elvis. It's not the act. Not the big star. A man with a tired voice was calling someone he had missed. That call didn't last long, but Linda will always remember it. It was the only person who really cared, which she had always known, but never thought she would hear out loud. After that, the line was quiet again. Those words didn't make things better. They came with questions. Had she left him when he needed her the most? Did leaving help him face the truth, or did it make him face it even more? Linda didn't have answers. She only had memories. The nights she stayed. Those times she tried. The slow goodbye that didn't make me feel free, but sad. And even though she left, the link was still there. It hung in the air between them, unfinished, real, and hard to forget. The death of Elvis and years of silence. Hearts can pick up on things that eyes can't. Lena thought something was wrong a few days before Elvis died. Even though they were far apart, she still cared deeply about him, and a quiet fear began to grow. She called Graceland on the phone, not to make things right, but because she felt like it. Someone close to him was asked to make sure he was still breathing, moving, and there. What if he was okay? "He's fine," was the simple answer. She knew something wasn't right, though. The day then came, August 16, 1977. Any hope she had was crushed by the call she never wanted to get. Lisa Marie, Elvis's 9-year-old daughter, was crying through the line as she tried to make sense of something that no child should ever have to say. Who was it? Elvis was no longer there. That's it. Linda had spent many nights with the man she had worked so hard to save. But he was now dead. It's not always true that grief comes in waves. It can happen all at once, like a wall falling down. Linda was very cold, surprised. It's not that she didn't see it coming. It's just that losing someone like that never feels real, no matter how ready you think you are. It happened quickly. It was mean. She was still thinking about the last thing he said to her. Afterward, lots of offers came in. Deals on books, talk show places, talks with magazines. Everyone was interested in what Linda had to say. They wanted news stories, tricks, bits of sound. Linda didn't give them any, though. Everyone else was talking, but she decided to be quiet. It wasn't because she didn't have a story to tell, but because it wasn't theirs to tell. It belonged to her, and his. She kept that story secret for many years, not because they feel bad, not because they are scared, but because they love you. For real, love doesn't seek fame. It doesn't give money for memories. To protect the Elvis she loved, Linda stayed out of the public eye. She knew that strangers would pick apart the version of Elvis she loved. So she didn't say much for 40 years. Others told their stories, some of which were true and some of which were not. Linda kept her truth to herself. She didn't have to show anything. She was happy with the times they spent together, the nights they spent together, the hard times and the funny times. And by not saying anything, she did what she could to protect him. But being quiet doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean giving up. And it doesn't mean peace at all. Because as the years went by and the noise died down, Linda felt something inside her change. It was a quiet pull that told her it was time. She had kept the past secret for 40 years, but now she was ready to let everyone see the real Elvis. When she finally spoke, the world listened. Linda Thompson finally spoke up after almost 40 years of silence. Her autobiography, A Little Thing Called Life, came out in 2016. It wasn't very loud. It was not bad. The point wasn't to hurt or shock anyone. It was soft, steady, and honest. Just like how she loved Elvis. The book wasn't written to get back at someone or make a point. She wrote it to remember. Not the stage character or the man in the tabloids, but the real person she knew. She wanted everyone to know that Elvis was a real person, not just a rock star. Complicated and contradictory. Feeling generous and scared. Very smart and broken at the same time. People had stories about Elvis for a long time. Some of them were true. Some were squished. Some people made him into a character. Someone not real, but bigger than life. All of that was cut off by Linda's words. There was no anger or sorrow in her story. It had a lot of meaning. That's right, she talked about his problems with addiction. But she also talked about his humor, his kindness, and how he could light up a room and then disappear into himself in an instant. She was honest, but she did it with kindness. It wasn't that she didn't show the hard parts, his substance use, his fear of being alone, and the weight of his fame, but she also showed the heart behind it all. She told everyone that Elvis loved deeply, gave freely, and worked hard to keep going even when things were hard. People saw a side of Elvis they had never seen before through her words. Not the famous person on stage, but the lonely man who walks the halls at night. The person who liked silly jokes. The man who felt safe when Linda was around. A Little Thing Called Life wasn't just about Elvis, though. It had to do with Linda as well. The girl who stopped being herself for him in order to meet all of his needs. Even though it hurt, the woman had to make her own choice in the end. The writer, mother, and artist who lost her son but found ways to heal, grow, and move on. Linda quietly built a new life after she left Graceland. She wrote hits like I Have Nothing with other people and won awards for it. Her husband was an Olympic champion, and they had 2 kids together. She later got married to David Foster, a music director. She kept going through life, making progress and starting over. But she never really left Elvis, no matter where she went. She still feels that time, even though she is 75 years old. She sees him not as a shade, but as a part of herself. She doesn't wear it with sadness. She wears it with respect. Because her love for Elvis changed her, she learned how to give, lose, and remember things without being angry about them. People didn't just listen when Linda finally spoke. They understood something new. Elvis was still big after hearing her story. It made him real. That's what folks remembered most of all. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And for more untold truths and powerful journeys, click the next video popping up on your screen right now.